Welcome to the Michael Rivero What Really Happened radio program.
And welcome to our show today. It is Monday, April 5th, 2021, start of a brand new week. We've got a lot to talk about, a little bit of news here, and then we're going to follow up with phone calls. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, and ready to answer the phone when we get into hour number 2. All right, interesting little story here. Over at Sky News, one of their hosts basically dissed Joe Biden on his latest gaffes and fails, saying that, Alan Jones went off on Joe Biden saying the leader of the free world is incoherent. He's having to be propped up physically and intellectually. He's absolutely right about that. And it raises the question, why did the Democrats go to all that trouble to steal the election just to put this, let's be honest, loser into the Oval Office? It just really does not make a lot of sense. Pardon me, Hunter Biden is back in the news. He did a little press conference where he talked about smoking Parmesan cheese because he thought it was crack cocaine. And he's been sort of trying some test balloons regarding his laptop. Last week he was talking about, well, it may or may not be his laptop. It might have been his laptop. The Russians may have stolen it and filled it full of disinformation. And then a lookalike dropped it off at that repair shop. Now he's backed off of that story because, let's face it, it was completely ridiculous. And the laptop is full of photos and videos that makes it pretty clear that it was Hunter Biden's. And people are saying, Hunter is definitely full of it. Now, about 5 months ago, the FBI was set to interview Hunter Biden's former business partner, Tony Bobulinski, after he claimed he had 3 cell phones proving Joe Biden lied about knowledge of Hunter's foreign deals in China. It's been 5 months, and the FBI is still sitting on this story. They're out there, we must protect the Führer, and so forth and so on here. Over at CBS, this is interesting. This is in the aftermath of the Georgia election integrity law. And I think it is just shameful. You're seeing all these corporations and social media and politicians are out there screaming that guaranteeing the election integrity is somehow going to destroy the country. So CBS actually came out with a news article with the headline, How to Beat the Georgia Election Integrity Laws. And they had 3 different ways companies could help fight Georgia's voting law. Then they yanked the article because of the huge backlash that resulted from that. Story coming on out of Zero Hedge. There is a liberal lawyer, Mark Elias, and he is taking a lot of heat for suggesting that Georgia voters are unable to correctly identify their own driver's license number, and that right there is a reason to rescind the requirement for voter ID. And I think the Georgian people were feeling justifiably insulted by that. And, I mean, they're so desperate to just get this thing, killed here. And Major League Baseball has expanded its contract with the Chinese firm Tencent, which has significant ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This is at the same time that are boycotting the Georgia All-Star Game. Now, what's really interesting, excuse me, pollen alert today, Major League Baseball requires you to show an ID to pick up your tickets that you pre-purchased. Alrighty. Over in Arizona, we reported this last week, the Senate has finally ordered an audit into Maricopa County 2020 results, and they have hired 4 different companies to conduct a full forensic audit of the Maricopa County election results. And they're saying the intent of hiring 4 separate companies is to make sure the results are accurate and transparent. Meanwhile, the Democrats in Arizona have gone on the warpath. They are attacking and smearing the auditors selected by Arizona's Senate to audit the 2020 election results in Maricopa County. I would not be surprised if the warehouse where the ballots are being stored suffers a mysterious accident in the middle of the night involving a couple of cans of gasoline and a road flare, because if Maricopa County is audited and fraud is discovered, this is going to justify audits in several other states as well, and the Democrats are desperate to keep this thing in check. Because we know the November's election was a joke. It delegitimized the entire federal government. Alrighty, let's talk about COVID-19. It is definitely still out there. And this is an interesting little article. This is coming out of shtfplan.com. The official expert scientists have declared that getting COVID after being fully vaccinated with the experimental gene therapies is expected, meaning the stuff doesn't work. The vaccines don't work as vaccines. They're being mislabeled, and they're using all the buzzwords and propaganda and PR spin to convince you still need this vaccine. But at this point, they have admitted the vaccines won't keep you from getting COVID, won't keep you from passing it on. It's, but it does alter your genetic material. And they are really out there still trying to force this thing on people. Now, over in Baltimore, AstraZeneca's vaccine production has been halted. And apparently the federal government has ordered Johnson & Johnson to take control of the Baltimore factory being used to produce doses of COVID-19 vaccines after workers at the factory mixed up ingredients for the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca jabs being prepared at the factory, spoiling 15 million doses, the latest and biggest case of spoiled batches in the United States. I mean, they're being very reckless about all this stuff. Reports of the spoiled jabs created a major headache for the Biden administration, which has made the vaccine rollout its most urgent political priority. The administration is rumored to have pressured Democratic governors to publicly receive the Johnson & Johnson vaccine on camera to send the message the jab is safe to the public. Of course, for all we know, there's nothing but distilled water in those syringes. Over in New York City, their top earners are going to pay the highest tax rates in the country under Governor Cuomo's plan to recover $4.3 billion costs in the pandemic shortfall. So another excuse to raise the taxes. We are all taxed way, 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 way too much. Italy's mandated COVID-19 shots for all of its healthcare workers, and the move comes after the discovery of COVID-19 clusters in hospitals after staff refused to get the shots in a country noted for relatively high levels of vaccine hesitancy. And here's where it gets really draconian. They're coming out with the vaccine passports. You get a little card when you get the shot. I think one of the office supply places is offering free lamination on that deal. But the FBI wants you to know it is a crime to misrepresent your status as the vaccine passports are rolled out. If you get a counterfeit vaccine passport, that is now going to be a crime, and the FBI is promising to hunt down anyone who lies about getting the COVID vaccine as the passports loom. I wish the FBI was out there tracking down, real criminals like child molesters and such. Getting into the international news now, obviously, the good thing is that there was no big bang over the Easter weekend other than the aborted coup in Jordan. And we're seeing all these articles, though, about Ukraine. Over in antiwar.com, they're saying that peace prospects are dimming as Ukraine tries to drag the U.S. and NATO into its confrontation with Russia. And numerous statements by Ukrainian and Russian officials reported this Easter Sunday bode ill for hopes of reducing the tensions in that part of the world. And there are growing indications of an impending intervention by the Pentagon and NATO. That makes the situation even more grim. U.S. European Command has raised its Ukraine watch level from possible crisis to potential imminent crisis, which is the highest level according to Stars and Stripes. Now, the Biden administration, according to this story out of Zero Hedge, is on alert over Russian saber rattling in Eastern Europe and Arctic. Both sides are out there, wagging swords at each other and waiting for the other side to make a provocative move. But The Hill is reporting that the Biden administration is on alert due to what it describes as Russia's saber rattling, particularly following last week's Russian troop buildup in Crimea and near Ukraine's border. And Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby is saying, I think we've been very clear about the threats we see from Russia across domains. Remember, the goal of the American political class and corporate media is to convince you this is all Russia's fault, forgetting how the United States overthrew the legitimate elected government of Kiev some years ago and imposed a junta which led to the secession of Crimea and the attempted secession of the Donbass. Now, the Kremlin is out there saying that the Russian army movements on the border with Ukraine are not a precursor to war, but they are, in fact, intended to defend against the fact that NATO is building up assets on their side of the border. So they're all ganging up on each side of the border and sneering at each other and making stink face. Moscow is not ruling out military measures in response to the missile threats arising from the West. This is coming out of Sputnik News. And plans by the United Kingdom and the U.S. to deploy ground-based short and intermediate-range missiles are making the prevention of possible serious escalations much more difficult, according to Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. There we go. All righty, getting into other news here. Story coming on out, Russia Today. Reports of Russian troops massing near Ukraine miss the mark. Russia-Ukraine war is possible, but only if Ukraine strikes first. Like I said, the goal is to basically make the other side look like the initiator, the bad guy. The way Roosevelt goaded Japan for an entire year to get them to attack Pearl Harbor. So we can say, oh, look, Japan did it, war after war here. Over in Ukraine, they are now asking the United States to strengthen their sanctions against Russia. And President Markarova is saying, we welcome the existing sanctions, and we constantly ask not just to extend, but strengthen sanctions. That is the price Russia has to pay for its actions taken in the partially occupied Donbass, for the illegal annexation of Crimea, which is not what happened, and for the continuous violations of the rights of the citizens, blah, 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 propaganda, 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 rinse and repeat. Deputy Speaker of Russia's Upper House Federation Council has slammed European silence over a recent attack by Ukrainian forces on a Russian-speaking eastern area, saying it represents a green light to Kiev for a renewed military operation in the pro-independence region. And don't forget, we reported last week how the chief of staff of the Ukrainian army said, yeah, we're going to have an operation in Donbass. It basically announced, yeah, we're going to go on and shoot up a bunch of people. Now, Gazprom is starting to gradually reduce the gas transit through Ukraine. After the launch of the Turkish Stream gas pipeline transit to Turkey, Greece, and Bulgaria was fully switched to new gas pipelines, reducing transit through Ukraine. Now, the reason for this is simple. Ukraine has been dipping into that gas supply and not paying for it. Technically, they owe the Russian republics a huge amount of money for the natural gas they have been using, and Russia didn't shut it off because much of Europe was relying on that gas as well. But now there's an alternate pipeline that is going around Ukraine, and Gazprom is starting to gradually reduce the gas transit through Ukraine. So they're sending a message on that one. Story coming on out of antiwar.com. A new Caucasus war could be part of Biden's unfinished business. For well over a decade in the White House, the State Department, the Defense Department, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization have been jointly preparing Georgia and Ukraine for NATO membership. Throughout that process, one of the main architects and executives of the policy has been Joe Biden as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, later as vice president. To become full NATO members, the two nations can have neither unresolved territorial conflicts in their nations, or what they claim to be their nations, nor foreign non-NATO military forces on their soil. As the world watches Washington edge toward direct military conflict with Russia over Ukraine, it should keep a close eye on what may be planned as a second front. They're really going to do it, is what's going to happen. They're really, really going to do it. So Ukraine is planning to join the NATO mission in Iraq and Kosovo, and also be part of Operation Sea Guardian. So everybody's lining up sides for the coming conflagration. Meanwhile, NATO is expanding its theater with China in its sights. This is according to Consortium News. Now, call me silly, but as I recall the globe, China does not border the North Atlantic, as in North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But during the March 23rd, 24 meeting of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization Council, Anthony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, encouraged NATO members to join the U.S. in viewing China as an economic and security threat, mostly economic, to the United States as well as to NATO countries. Can't compete with them, just bomb them. Meanwhile, China has sent its aircraft carrier into Japanese waters, saying that Tokyo and Washington's encroachment in Chinese waters justifies the move and basically unties Beijing's hands. With the U.S. and Japan all but officially teaming up to try and encircle China in the Pacific, Beijing has made the most significant military display yet, sending a carrier group between the Japanese islands and Taiwan. So everybody's getting really serious about this. Over in Israel, a lot going on in Israel. Passover's ended last night. A Palestinian mother called the Israeli police to help her son with a mental illness, and instead they shot him. When Itaf Anabtawi called the police to her home in the Wadi Nisnas neighborhood of Haifa, she never imagined it would result in the death of her son, Munir. Itaf had just returned home after a week-long stay at the hospital and said she was lovingly welcomed back home by her 33-year-old son, Munir, who his family said had a mental illness. And according to Itaf, Munir, who receives routine medical treatment for his illness in the nearby neighborhood of Kiryat Eliezer, seemed like he had not been taking his medication. So she called for help from the Israeli police, and they just simply shot him. Another story, this one is coming out of immc.org. Palestinian farmers from Batir town, west of Bethlehem, south of the occupied Palestinian capital Jerusalem in the West Bank, confronted and managed to prevent a group of illegal Israeli colonists from uprooting their lands. In other words, uprooting the plants on those lands. The WAFA Palestinian news agency said the incident took place Sunday. And we have to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about events going on in Israel and Palestine, and we're talking about how Palestinian farmers from Batir town, west of Bethlehem, managed to thwart an attempt by illegal Israeli colonists from destroying their crops. And apparently these colonists were being accompanied by Israeli soldiers. They attacked just after midnight. They brought a bulldozer, but they were able to basically thwart the attack and preserve their crops. And we have another story here. This is from memc.org. Israeli military shoots young Palestinian man near Jerusalem. This one was just injured. And apparently after they shot him, they took him away, and nobody knows where he is right now. The circumstances surrounding the shooting are unknown. Over in Palestine just yesterday, a man was forced to demolish his own home in Jabal al-Mukaber in occupied Jerusalem under the pretext of not having a permit. Now, this is a little game that Israel likes to play. They will issue permits to Jewish families to build in the Palestinian lands, but they will not issue permits to Palestinians to build in the Palestinian lands, and then they simply come on and demolish the home and order the Palestinians to demolish their own home. According to data by the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions, more than 120,000 Palestinian homes have been demolished by Israel and the occupied Palestine territory since 1948. That's a lot of homes. Okay, near Ramallah, Israeli soldiers attacked on Friday dozens of Palestinians holding the weekly non-violent procession in the Al-Mugavir village northeast of the central West Bank city of Ramallah. They injured 6 Palestinians in addition to causing many others to suffer the effects of tear gas inhalation. Now, the Palestinians were marching against the Israeli closure of the eastern entrance to the village, in addition to marking Palestinian Land Day. So they marched toward the eastern entrance while chanting against the ongoing closure, the illegal Israeli occupation and its colonies, in addition to the escalating violations against the Palestinian people. The Israeli soldiers fired many rubber-coated steel bullets at the protesters, wounding 6, in addition to causing many others, again, to suffer tear gas inhalation. Over in Great Britain, there is a judge, Westminster District Judge Michael Snow, sentenced a woman to jail for the crime of describing the Holocaust as a cash cow. And apparently she said that in a podcast. She's going to be in jail for 4.5 months. But, you know, it's an obvious observation to make. Every time Israel talks about the Holocaust, they have their hand out for another donation or more goodies or more freebies, as it were. Over in Iran, their foreign ministry has issued a statement by saying they will maintain their enhanced enrichment level until they get full and immediate sanctions relief as required under the P5+1 nuclear deal. Now, the corporate media and the government are out there saying, bad Iran, bad Iran, bad Iran. But Iran is sending a simple message to the United States. Please comply with the deal that you signed all those years ago. So spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh said that the proposals for a step-by-step process had been suggested and would see Iran reversing its nuclear process for only a small step of U.S. engagement in the process. Iran considers that unacceptable. And I love this one. This is a story coming out of Washington Examiner. Later this month, off the coast of San Diego, the U.S. Navy will be test sailing what they see as the future. They're going to have a single manned surface ship. The Zumwalt-class destroyer, USS Mansour, will be directing and coordinating a futuristic fleet of unmanned ships and aircraft in a week-long exercise aimed at demonstrating a robot navy. So that will definitely be interesting. All right, getting into the economic news here. Uranium prices are poised to rally. They're saying the market is emerging from years in the doldrums, resulting from the nuclear disaster in Fukushima. Global demand is picking up steam. I would venture to suspect that as more and more countries are updating their nuclear weapon systems, that is a huge, huge market for uranium there. But if you're interested in investing, that's someplace you can put your money. Over in Elon Musk land, their January claims of Model SX production have been refuted by Tesla's own first quarter delivery disclosure. And short seller Mark Spiegel took to Twitter this weekend to point out what he called the latest evidence Elon Musk is a securities fraud committing liar. I guess they don't like him because he's successful. And we got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the economic news here. And there's a story that is coming out of Zero Hedge about universal basic income and the road to serfdom. Now, a lot of people think a universal basic income would be a good substitute for the welfare state. Under this proposal, each person resident in the country would receive a guaranteed minimum income sufficient to live at a modest level. People would get the money unconditionally. Unlike welfare payments, the universal basic income would not be lessened if people earned money in addition to the amount it provided. And because it is not means tested, absolutely everyone gets it, even billionaires. Well, this makes us all dependent on the government to do what we are told to do. Now, this story came out of the Washington Post. And it's a follow-up to a story we had last week where Biden is redefining infrastructure to include or transition to caregiving, like child care, public health care, which normally don't fit the definition of infrastructure. And now we're finding out why, courtesy of the Washington Post, Biden's advisors are concerned that actually putting money into infrastructure like roads and bridges and rails and so forth is going to help white working class men because they form the majority of the workers who work in these kind of trades, if you will. And so rather than focus on building bridges, roads, and physical infrastructure, Biden's advisors are saying put all this money into caregiving investments because caregiving investments will disproportionately help minorities and women. So already they're playing politics with it. Our infrastructure does need repair, and we need to get the best possible people working on that infrastructure to fix it. Okay. Anyway, Joe Biden is back at the White House after Easter weekend at Camp David. He is criticizing Republicans who are claiming that his $2.3 trillion spending package really has nothing to do with infrastructure, which is what the Washington Post is saying, and dismisses claims that higher corporate taxes might push companies abroad. Well, the reason they're doing that today, Biden is calling for countries all around the world to raise their taxes by the same amount to discourage companies fleeing to more tax-friendly places. I don't know how successful he's going to be with that, but that's what they're pushing for, taxes higher all around the globe. And it's silly. We're already being taxed way, 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 way too much. Over in Montana, the Republican governor, Greg Gianforte, has signed new legislation that bans sanctuary cities for illegal aliens being established within the state. Now, Montana doesn't currently have any sanctuary cities, but the move is seen as a warning shot from state GOP executives. Republicans are pushing back as Joe Biden and the Democratic Congress continue to push progressive reforms. Similar legislation was vetoed in 2019 by former Montana Governor Steve Bullock, who is a Democrat. Now, Governor Gianforte warned in a statement, "We are a nation of laws, and immigration laws will be enforced in Montana." Good for Greg. That's all I can say. We need to enforce those laws. Title 8. Every mayor of a sanctuary city is in violation of Title 8, and they're looking at serious jail time because there's one count for each illegal immigrant they have assisted, which numbers in the thousands. There's a new report. This is coming out of trendingpolitics.com. The Biden administration is busing thousands of illegal immigrants to red states to get permanent status, to turn them into Democratic voters and swing those states blue. And again, they don't care what damage they're doing to the country. They don't care how upset they're making the American people. They don't care that it's helping to erode our society completely as long as they can cling on to power and get that money and those votes. That's all they really care about anymore. And that's another reason why we should not view this government as being particularly in line with the best interests of the American people. Now, Lindsey Graham was on Fox News and basically torched Fauci, saying that he should be calling for the migration programs to be shut down because these illegal immigrants are coming across the border. They are not being tested for contagious diseases, including COVID-19. Now, some of them have been tested after they're inside the United States of America and confirmed that, yes, they are bringing these contagious diseases inside the country. Down in Florida, there is a reservoir that is contaminated with radioactive wastewater. It has been sagging for some time. They're saying it could collapse at any moment. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency on Saturday and said that people need to start evacuating now. If that reservoir lets go, everything downstream is going to be unusable for decades because of the radioactivity. Up in Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds has signed legislation into law on Friday that lets residents buy and carry guns without permits. Now, the legislation was backed by the National Rifle Association. It was House File 756. It takes effect on the 1st of July, and it eliminates the requirement for law-abiding Iowans to obtain a permit to purchase a handgun from private, non-licensed sources. Additionally, to carry a weapon, people will no longer need to have a permit as well. So good for the people of Iowa. Okay. Story coming on out of Patriot Rising asking a reasonable question. Is it time to start suing these anti-Second Amendment extremists? Because the fact is, the lies that are coming out of the gun grabbers, they're having a major impact on us all. They are creating a mythical existential threat to not only exercising our Second Amendment rights, but the ability to use our First Amendment rights in defense of the Second Amendment. Now, this was unthinkable 15 years ago, that Second Amendment advocacy or even the lawful exercise of our Second Amendment rights could be targeted in this manner. And it's time for a hard pushback, and that may include the court system. Okay, let's see. Let's do that. All right. Up on Mars, the Mars copter is now sitting on the ground. It was deployed from the underside of the Perseverance, and Perseverance has now backed away from it, and they've sent back pictures of the helicopter Ingenuity. sitting on the Martian soil, and sometime around the 11th, next week, they're going to send it for its first flight. Now, the rotors on the helicopter rotate much faster than would be the case here on Earth due to Mars' thin atmosphere. Mars' gravity is also a lot less than here on Earth, and so they're expecting that they're going to be successful with this and be able to take images from the Ingenuity helicopter that they would not be able to get from Perseverance itself. Meanwhile, the InSight lander, yes, we do have other spacecraft up there, the InSight lander detected 2 more crisp earthquakes on the red planet, both stemming from the same region where the mission's previous best observations originated, and this is how they're now able to determine that Mars does have an internal structure a lot like Earth. The core is a lot larger than they were expecting. And the mission so far has identified more than 500 quakes in its first Martian year, but lately heavy winds have prevented the clear signal scientists need to detect the small rumbles. So now what they're doing is they're using the little surface sampler, the shovel, on InSight to bury the cable underneath a pile of dirt in the hope that this is going to clean the signal up a little bit better. Alrighty, out in California, when Apple launched a new butterfly keyboard with the new MacBook Pro some years ago, it was slapped with a class action lawsuit for its defective keyboards. Now, a second class action lawsuit could be in the making, called FlexGate. And according to The Verge, Apple opted for fragile flex cables instead of beefier wires for its screens on the MacBook Pro models in 2016. The new lawsuit, filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, is over the MacBook Pro, rented lips, developing stage light issues at the bottom of the screen, eventually leading to a complete failure. Now, U.S. District Judge Edward Davila decided this week to allow the FlexGate lawsuit to move forward, ruling that Apple knew it was selling defective equipment. So that will be good. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines because I ran out of news here. Area code 512-248-8252. And let's look at some other news while we're waiting for people to call on in. Now, Amazon has a little bit of egg on their face, actually a little more than just egg. There was a big stink where some of the Amazon drivers were saying that their work schedules were so heavy that they sometimes had to urinate in bottles. Amazon denied it. Then the drivers started showing with the receipts for having bought the bottles in the first place, and now Amazon is having to admit that, yeah, the drivers sometimes have to pee in bottles, and we shouldn't pay attention to that. Getting back to computers here, AMD has published a white paper on a potential security vulnerability that affects the company's latest Zen 3 processors. And there is a side channel exploit. It's similar to Spectre that affected a plethora of Intel processors 3 years ago. Now, with Zen 3, AMD introduced a new technology called predictive store forwarding, which helps improve code execution performance by predicting the relationship between loads and stores. In the majority of the cases, PSF's predictions are on the spot. However, there's still a slim chance the prediction may not be accurate, which results in an incorrect CPU speculation. Okay, we're going to take a phone call now. Kelly in Texas. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
You were discussing Mars earlier, and I wanted to tell you that geologists have known for a long time, or suspected for a long time, that Mars beneath the surface is a lot like Earth.
Yes.
First off, you have volcanic eruptions that are very similar to those on Earth. The largest volcano in the solar system is on Mars.
Olympus Mons.
Yes, Olympus Mons. You know, and you can see features on the Martian surface that look exactly like shifting plates.
Yes.
And so there is more than likely, a kind of plate tectonic system operative on Mars, which accounts for the tectonism. Again, you can see tectonism. You can see volcanoes lined up on straight lines. And again, these features are features that look a lot like many features that look a lot like tectonic plate boundaries on Earth.
Yes, they do. Plus, all the features that look like liquid flow features, and we know now that red coloring on Mars is only a few feet thick, and underneath that, we find colors more in line with, again, what we would find here on Earth.
Yeah, about the red coloring. As a geochemist, I see that and I tend to think, well, that sounds a lot like iron oxide.
Yes.
That's exactly what you get here on Earth when you oxidize iron. So, I mean, geochemical processes on Mars are a lot like those on Earth. I mean, and the whole planet is a lot like Earth. Even and you can see evidence of surficial water having flown on Mars. Is kind of our smaller twin.
Yes.
And I want to take a pot shot at Jill, Dr. Jill Biden. She has an EDD, not a PhD.
Yes.
Those of us who weren't PhDs laugh at EDDs. She was out in California and making some search to United Farmers, and she was trying to speak Spanish.
Yes.
And she was, and we can. Well, I speak German and French. I don't speak Spanish that well, but I speak it a lot better than she does.
Yes.
She was trying to say, yes, we can, which in Spanish is si se puede. And she said, si se puede. They've been laughing at her for a second.
Yes.
Si se puede. And then there was that United Farm Workers eagle symbol behind her. Mm-hmm. And some people look at that and they say, that looks like a Nazi eagle.
Yes.
Well, no, it really doesn't, to tell you the truth. Yeah, they used the eagle, the oddler, but it was a different form. But still, it looked like that to some people, and they jumped all over her rear end in a hurry. I thought it was funny. First off, she proved she can't speak Spanish.
Yes.
She made a fool of herself, and then these social justice warriors who are watching it also jumped on the German eagle, the German eagle. Mm-hmm. So this is just the beginning. She's going to get nailed from here on out anytime she goes out.
No, the honeymoon is definitely
Mars,
over.
Yeah, Mars is our little twin out there. It's just that it's out beyond the habitable zone, and
well, no, it isn't. When you remember that the Viking landers in 1976 detected indigenous life, so clearly it is habitable.
Oh yeah, I think it probably is. Do you know who Peter Ward is?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, but he's a geologist, a paleontologist. He does a lot of work in exobiology and planet. Anyway, but he and one of his colleagues, his last name is Brownlee, have written a book on Earth and what it's called rare Earth.
Yes.
And what they point out is that this planet sits in what they call a habitable zone around the sun, where conditions are optimal for the development of life as we know it. And when you get out beyond that, then things become less habitable, and it may be that once you get out as far as Mars, that there is or was life on Mars, but not as we know it here, because the habitable zone conditions that exist here that allow us.
Okay, Kelly, I got to put you on hold. I want to respond to what you just said. Stay on the line. We're going to come right back to you after these commercials. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Kelly in Texas. We're talking about the planet Mars. And I realize this is going to be a little unfair because I'm relying on the people watching us on YouTube here. But this is a topographic globe of Mars. And if you look basically at this region, this is called Tarsus, and this is where all those giant volcanoes are located. That's Olympus Mons right there. And on nearly the opposite side of the planet is this gigantic impact structure that I think that Mars was much more Earth-like in the distant past, and something plowed into there and literally splashed the atmosphere and the water out into space.
Well, I don't understand. I think that and obviously whatever happened there had a big impact on whatever life there was at the time, and it probably impacted the atmosphere and surface water resources on the planet.
Yes.
Now, I think it's Ward's point. In fact, I would, as your commercials running, I walked back into my ham shack / library and pulled out a copy of Rare Earth. The authors of Peter D. Ward and Donald Brownlee. It's Rare Earth, Why Complex Life is Uncommon in the Universe. And the argument they're making, and I can't discount it, is that life, and again, it's life as we know it, it depends upon a specific set of conditions that allow it to evolve. And those conditions, as we know it in our solar system, are such that they're optimal within the orbital range of Earth around the Sun. You get closer in, it's much too hot, and so what life forms are there.
Yeah, but look at the extremophiles we find here on Earth. We have fish that are living in freezing water. We have microbes that are living deep inside the Earth in very, very high temperatures. Life evolves to be comfortable in the environment in which it evolves, and so this so-called habitable zone, I think, is kind of a species chauvinism that scientists are engaging in.
I don't know. I mean, I think the point they're making is that given the conditions on Mars as we know it now, and as it may have existed back then, were not such that you'd find Homo sapiens-like creatures walking around the surface of the planet. Certainly, you'd find microbial forms of life, and then more complex forms of microbial forms of life, but not.
Well, I don't know. I think Curiosity should have gone back and taken another look at that feature that was called the crab, because that certainly looked organic and complex.
I wonder whether or not that...
Okay, Kelly, you keep fading out. I don't know exactly why. There's something wrong with the phone connection here.
Okay, well, can you hear me better now?
I hear you now, yes.
Okay, all right. It's because the microphone is hanging a little further down there. I wonder whether or not that impact on Mars had a lot to do with the formation of the Valles Marineris.
Well, it certainly lines up with it, yeah.
Yeah, it did, because the Valles Marineris is a huge rupture.
Yes.
In the surface of Mars. You look at it, and it's actually a bulge, a big bulge. It kind of ripped apart, and at the end of that...
Oh, yeah, Mars is definitely lopsided. There's no question about that.
Oh, yeah, it took one hell of a hit, and and I don't doubt back then had a huge impact on life as it was at that time, and on the atmosphere and the water.
But life finds a way. Kelly, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for station identification. We got more callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're going to go back to the phones to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello?
You're on the air.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to say a couple of things.
Okay.
While Biden is trying to tax the entire globe to make things fair, his home state of Delaware is the actual massive tax shelter thing of this country.
Yes.
The Orange Avenue post office boxes where everyone from every credit card company to Hillary Clinton's Uranium One and everything else, they all use Delaware as a tax shelter.
Yes.
I know a century ago when there was nothing more than ships and foot traffic as the ability to justify the reason for it being inland and not having a port as to be tax exempt is moot today. But everyone from Warren Buffett to Bill Gates and everyone else is going to benefit from Delaware being tax exempt while he marches on to try to attempt to basically claim to tax the world. It's just another diversion from reality.
Yes.
The people who think that Biden is nothing but a buffoon and a bumbling idiot couldn't be more wrong. The Democrats are very well organized. They're very well structured. They're people that they have in place to make sure they never get caught. You look and see that they keep saying Ukraine this, Ukraine that, but when you look, you'll see the Clintons, the Bidens, the Pelosi's, everyone goes through Ukraine, including Bill Gates has countless tax-exempt agencies there, and as well as the British Isles, all these places where everything's tax-exempt and it's just far enough away for no one to see what's going on, no different than the Panama Papers.
Mm-hmm.
I hate saying but you get overwhelmed when the other callers call in and you get distracted from what you want to talk about because it takes so long to get on the phone. So I want to apologize.
Sorry about that.
Listening. It's not your fault. It is what it is to try to maintain your thought process and not get off track. But you hear so many other things you want to address, and I just think that the Federal Reserve and Janet Yellen and everyone else, they're just the bankers trying to make sure they protect their own monopolies and their own self-interest while they raise taxes on everyone. And the result of raising taxes on everyone is homelessness. And when the property taxes go up and up and up, and the answer to everything is more government and more government employees, and then when you need the government employees that have been hired at these ridiculous salaries in order to enforce the laws, and they don't enforce Title VIII, the FBI won't investigate the Clintons. The FBI won't do its job when it comes to looking at the Hunter Biden laptop. And you see the FBI has put everything on the back burner. And then when you try to speak out, that person has to be censored and their Twitter account has to be shut off because the truth can't reach the public. It's horrible.
Yes, it is.
And you can look back over 100 years, when there was a man who owned a sword-making company, and the Sword Laborers Union said that the Sword Laborers Union, the workers couldn't be replaced, so the guy went to Europe during the Industrial Revolution. He had them make a giant machine that could make 10 billets for swords.
Yes.
And he could make 10 swords in the time that it took one laborer to make one. So the result was the union had to go and burn down the factory, and they had this large Haymarket affair fire.
Yes.
And the Hostess Labor Union said that they needed $49 an hour to make Twinkies, so Hostess went out of business. The Auto Workers Union was at $93 an hour, and that was a little high, and then you wonder why a car isn't $1,500 anymore for a brand new car.
Mm-hmm.
Obama had to bail out the Auto Workers Union and send everything over to Dubai and India and other places.
Yes,
but the public
down to Mexico.
Spent $50 billion. Yeah, but the public still had to bail out the labor unions for over $50 billion. And then General Electric, their union was going to go bust, and so we had to bail them out. And now they're relocated somewhere else, and they have the faulty nuclear plant stuff, and nobody's held accountable to anything.
No,
you really look at you have all these laws so-called in place, and then when it comes to enforcing them, it's the politicians themselves who are breaking the law. And then someone as powerful as Donald Trump himself couldn't even get a day in court. And the My Pillow guy's life was also ruined because he told the truth. And you look at Seth Rich, and he tried to tell the truth. Edward Snowden tried to tell the truth.
Yep.
Deborah Palfrey tried to tell the truth. Ben Foster tried to go public. And all of these people have an unfortunate accident. And the solution, I think, is the beginning of the Constitution where it says, we the people as a whole, the strength in numbers is the key.
Yes.
And this guy, Larkin Rose, he did a video where this tiny dot had the power over this massive population because they scared the public into not coming together to stand as one.
Yes.
That makes sense.
No, that makes sense. Well, that's why they're keeping us divided, black against white, young against old, men against women. The thing the U.S. government mostly fears is the American people coming together as an American people and saying, look, this is a very, very badly managed country, and it's time for new management.
Yes, and when you see the Bohemian Grove meetings and the Bilderberg meetings, their agenda is to market that divide and conquer program.
Yes.
And it goes all the way back to Edward Bernays and the same monopoly families that are from the beginning. And Flexner report and the stuff that those people that wanted the monopoly back then and they're still in power today. And, you know, it should be National Guillotine Day eventually for these people who just, you know, they go into government and they want to make $90,000 a year, and then within a couple of years they're billionaires. And it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. It's a crooked machine. It's corrupt from top to bottom. I mean, you know, prove me wrong on that one.
And I think that when I first heard you and the Rancho Runamucca, and
yes.
I was
that's going back a few years.
When I first heard you and I took it all in, and the importance of knowing the facts.
Yes.
I wish your listeners could hear, like when you went on Coast to Coast AM back before they got taken over and censored, and you were able to lay it all out and simplify it and take years of information and condense it down. And that's why I think that the all wars or bankers wars should be required in schools today, so that people can see just what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I know as soon as I get off the phone, I'll wish I said something else. But I hope that your listeners realize that the Democrats are anything but bumbling. They're anything but buffoons. And they are very well organized. They're very educated. They have the taxpayers' money and the taxpayers' resources all protecting them. And that's how corruption stays corrupt. It never gets caught. It never gets held accountable. The same four families are still running California for the last century.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you turn around, there's more people homeless and being forced to live on the streets because they can't afford the property taxes needed to provide more expensive government and more government. And the answer to everything is more government. And the little guy that Mr. Smith goes to Washington,
mm-hmm.
and as soon as he arrives, he gets killed by the Capitol Police, who had to get more guns, bombs, bullets to use against the taxpayer, when the taxpayer just wants to be heard and his peaceful redress of grievance. And they don't want anyone to organize. They don't want anyone to speak up. They want everyone just to shut their mouth and open the borders. And long ago, they had this thing called the War of the World Studies that was funded by the Rockefellers to see just how much of the media had to be owned in order to control the public.
Mm-hmm.
And these people jumped out of windows and killed themselves, but the Rockefellers were never held accountable for their role in those murders. And today, the COVID could be nothing more than a secondary phase of War of the World, where the people are fooled into giving up their rights because they might get a virus. And, you know, the public is entitled to the truth. Somewhere along the way, you know, I
agree. The public's going to have to find the truth for itself. Nobody's going to give it to them. All that we're going to get from the government and the corporate media are more lies designed to keep them in power and control.
Yes, while the answer every day is the Federal Reserve should print more money at higher interest rates.
Yes.
And then anytime someone speaks out, including JFK or Martin Luther King or anybody, they just have an unfortunate accident, and it's always blamed on the lone gunman that lived in his mom's basement, and it's the answer every time. And when you look into it, you see that the person is always connected to the FBI right before they pull something,
mm-hmm.
and then they have pass the fall guy, or somebody always goes down, like the Sarnev brothers, who didn't even have the correct colored backpacks.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that did have the backpack that matched the bomb, you see him running away, and nobody questions nothing. And the conspiracy theory tinfoil hat thing is you're always supposed to smash the person into the ground if they question the official story mumbled by government.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But, you know, I think more and more people are realizing that the so-called conspiracy theorists tend to be right more often than not.
Yes, but the CIA's internal memo or department policy book, they give the conspiracy theory tinfoil hat a number. It's actually a number where they were told when they were hired to blurt out this thing, conspiracy theory tinfoil hat, to anyone who questioned the official. It's in their employment book. I don't know. The
term conspiracy theorist was invented in the aftermath of the John F. Kennedy assassination.
Yes, and it has a department memo number, and we need to look it up, 416503 or something. I don't remember where it is, but it's that's probably all I want to say right now.
Okay.
And Thank you very much for taking my call.
Well, thank you for calling, and call in again. We're going to switch over to Joe in Alaska. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Me bad. You brought up mining on the ocean floor, and you referred to it as magnesium,
Or manganese.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, manganese. That's what causes scrapies in sheep. You know, the
Yes.
sheep dipping and all that. And that kind of leads into what I really called about is that was Howard Hughes. That was the Glomar Explorer.
Well, that
And
was the cover story for the Glomar Explorer.
Okay. So then why did you say what you said the other day about, because, yeah, you've heard of the K-129.
Oh, yes, very much so. Operation Clementine.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know what the operation was. There's a video out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe I brought this up before. UW is where the submarine warfare lab is, or they have one there. And I've actually visited there once, of course. Just a bunch of classrooms, whatever. They aren't going to reveal any secrets to me, in spite of the fact that it was my father that made up that phony manganese story in the first place.
Yes.
Just like he made up that phony mogul balloon story in the first place. You know, it was his balloon program that was blamed on, and the guy that was actually running it after he established it was Charlie Moore at New Mexico Tech.
Yes.
And he wrote a book called The Crash at Roswell, Genesis of a Modern Myth. And of course, he had to run it by the head guy first for vetting.
Yes.
And my father had that manuscript around for a while until some spook spirited it away because apparently it had some notes in there that weren't for public dissemination. But at any rate, okay. Yeah, I don't know why you referred to magnesium the other day, but yeah, that was a red herring.
Well, it was certainly in terms of the Glomar Explorer, which was built specifically to recover that Russian submarine. And the fact of the matter is they botched the job. They got very little of it, and CIA tried to make a big deal that they had these few fragments of a Russian sub, and oh my goodness, aren't we great? But Clementine was pretty much a failure. They didn't get the nuclear missile. They didn't get any of the propulsion technology. They got some rusty pipes is what they got.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's not what that video that I watched said about it.
Okay.
There's part 1 and part 2. But, of course, you know, we've all been sheep dipped, for heaven's sake. And especially me. But fortunately, I opted out fairly early. And, yeah, I'm a high school dropout. But I got a really good score on my GED.
Okay.
Science and math specifically. But, yeah, I'm a former computer nerd myself.
Okay.
But and I've been subjected to a little bit of manganese as a welder, but I'm a lot more worried about the fluoride and the aluminum.
Yeah, I can understand that, definitely. All right, well, Joe, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind? Mark, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm there. You hear me?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Okay. 2 things are on my mind. One is this COVID vaccine passport again. they think they're going to push this on us. They're crazy. First of all, a lot of states are right now already saying they won't go with it, including Florida.
Yes.
I believe most of your states are going to tell them to, off, all this does is pushes this country closer and closer to some kind of a split, maybe a secession, maybe even a civil war. Who knows?
Yes.
And yet, this maniac, this clown in the White House, he's not a clown, he's a maniac. He's a demented old psychopath. Is messing with the most powerful, probably the most powerful military force on the face of this earth. That's right.
Yes.
I was watching stuff today and early this morning before I went out on BitChute. Harvey, I don't know if you ever heard of him, Harvey Slanger, I think his name is.
Yeah, I've heard the name, yes.
He's taken over for Lyndon LaRouche, LaRouche back, and he was talking to a couple other people, and he was describing Russian military, even though they spend a fraction of what we spend, they have some excellent weapons. They're way ahead of us in weapon technology.
Especially hypersonics, yeah.
Hypersonics and what do you call it? Pulse weapons?
Yes, directed energy.
Directed energy, yeah. Okay. So if we would, on top of that, the fighting would have to be right there on the border where the Russians are prepared. I mean, they're ready. And I was also watching, there's another thing called Halfree Synergy News of T. West.
Mm-hmm.
He's also describing how powerful both the Russian and the Chinese. He says the Chinese military is the most powerful on earth. All of whatever it is, we're messing around with two of the most powerful militaries in the world.
Yes.
There are people not being taught to wear dresses and to cut off their private parts or to pretend they're a woman or pretend they're men. They're not taught stuff like that.
No.
They're these serious people. They're patriotic people, and it's incredible. And yet this madman wants to do everything he can to demoralize the American people, and then think he's going to have a military that's ready to fight. I mean, he's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen, I don't know how anybody's going to join today. Maybe he's planning on getting these illegal aliens in. They're not going to fight because they have nothing to fight for. It's not their country. So he's going to he's playing with fire.
Okay, Mark, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. And again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network needs your continuing support to keep on doing the good work that we're doing, keeping the American people fully informed. And we'd like to thank everybody out there who has donated to Republic to keep us on the air, to keep us on the net, to keep us doing what we're doing. And I wish I could say it's enough, but it isn't. We need more from you. And there's no such thing as too small a donation. The postal address where you can send in a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. Now, if you send in a donation of $100, you will get your choice of an RBN coffee mug or a t-shirt, an official t-shirt. So please include your t-shirt size and a return address if that's what you want, or just the return address if you want the mug. And if you send in a donation of $115 or more, you will get both. And don't forget that front sight firearm deal is still on, and that is definitely a sweetheart. Getting on back to the phones, we're going to go to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Joe, are you there?
Hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
You hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. I am furious. I haven't called for a few weeks. I figured let others call. Fantastic call by the other Joe in California. Couldn't agree with him more. I love that National Guillotine Day. I'd like front seats for that.
Yes.
I want to ask you a quick question before I get to my main point. I hope Mark is correct when it comes to this COVID vaccine, but I'm very pessimistic. I see where this is going, and I'm very pessimistic. I feel like the bad guys, the oligarchs, the Davos set, I feel like they're winning. I feel like there's just too many people with their heads in the sand who just want to go back to a normal life and are willing to do anything. What is your opinion about this? What do you think is the likelihood of this being implemented nationally?
You're talking about mandatory vaccines. Well, first of all, there are legal reasons.
COVID vaccine passports.
The passports. Yeah, it's just another paper that we're going to have to show to live our lives, and I'm opposed to them mostly because the vaccines don't seem to be working anyway. And I'm kind of wondering, given how ineffective the vaccines are against COVID, if they really are serving another purpose. And indeed, with all this talk about a coming war with Russia, if maybe the United States is getting ready to use biological weapons, ethnically sensitive biological weapons, and these vaccines were being given to basically protect us from our own, nasty stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's what Dr. Mike Yeadon, I recommend. I urge all the listeners to go to Tony Gosling's website, BCFM. Tony Gosling from the UK, he did a fantastic interview with Yeadon, who was formerly with Pfizer, and he believes nobody under 60 who's healthy should even get this shot.
Yes.
And he's not even sure what this is all about. But Mike, my main issue, we all need to stand with Georgia. This is outrageous what these corporate behemoths are doing, the MLB, Delta, American, whoever. I just canceled my MLB channel. I fired off an email to the MLB. I said, I'm a longtime MLB fan, and I was. And I said, I am done with your product, with your brand. I was done last year, but now I'm, with taking the knee.
Yeah.
This is outrageous, undemocratic. I said, I hope you go bankrupt, good riddance, and I hope more fans follow me. And I just heard George Samouli of the Gaggle. He's with Peter Lavelle, and he said, this is a great opportunity again for the Republicans to show their populist bona fides by going after these corporations for their attempts to overthrow the will of the people in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But again, and I agree with Samouli, you think the likes of McConnell and Kevin McCarthy, with their grasping, the way he put it, their grasping hands for corporate money, you think they're going to defy the corporate power?
No, they aren't.
Of course not. Of course they won't, because they're pussies, and they're useless, just like every other Republican in Washington. I think the only decent Republicans are like this Governor DeSantis, the Tom's governor. He's the only one that's got balls.
Yeah.
But we need to stand with Georgia. We need to flex our economic muscle and show these white, socially liberal, social virtue signalers that there's going to be consequences. We need a nationwide boycott against these companies.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
They did the same thing in Indiana. Indiana, Ian Michael Jones talks about this a lot. They passed a law, religious freedom, and this company out of San Francisco overturned it. This has got to stop.
Joe, I'm going to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. The phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. The phone lines are open. We have some lines open, actually. Area code 512-248-8252. We're talking with Joe in California about this insane political/corporate reaction to Georgia's passing a voter integrity law. And Joe was saying it's time to boycott the Major League Baseball. It's time to boycott Delta Airlines. And I'm totally in agreement. I mean, this is an airline company and a sports organization. They are not political. They are certainly not elected to represent we, the people, in terms of whether we want honest elections or not. So, Joe, just sort of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Mike. I mean, I'll be sure. It's all about strength in numbers.
Yes.
I contacted Bed Bath & Beyond too on their decision to discontinue Mike Liddell's product.
Yes.
You know, I called the other companies that did the same. MLB Today. I will not fly American or Delta. You know, it's funny how this whole policy. You know, the U.S. has become the world leader in imposing sanctions on other countries.
Yes.
This policy has come home.
Yes.
It's now come home, but it's being done by the corporations, who are working, of course, hand in glove with the government. Wink, wink.
Yes.
I mean, these corporations, when things go bad, who bails them out? We do, the taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have their hand out to the government, so the government tells them what to do, and they do it. So, and these big corporations, their decision to do this to Georgia, are they representing the tens of thousands of employees that work for those companies? Of course not.
No.
All of these employees don't agree with that decision, or the shareholders. This is just, I'm just shocked. I'm just shocked what's happening. I mean, this country has gone insane.
Yes.
It's absolutely gone insane. And going to Mark's point about Russia, Russia is looking for a partner to negotiate with. But there is nobody to talk to in the West. They're all nuts.
Yes.
They're crazy.
Yes.
They've all been infected with this uber-liberal ideology. It's just, the wokeism. I mean, now it's taken over the corporations, although I think the corporations, I believe, are doing it, you know, for financial reasons, you know, because of their partnership with this evil government. But we are in a whole lot of trouble, Mike.
Yes, we are.
Now, I honestly, I really feel, I know how it feels to have lived in the Soviet Union. That's how I feel. I feel helpless.
Yes.
We've got the likes of, we have our own Pravda, our own Izvestia in the corporate media. I don't know how we're going to get out of this, because the bottom line is there are not enough people in this country who think like us. I think more than half of this country is on board with this whole agenda.
I don't think so. I think it's a minority segment of the population that is holding on to this ultra-liberal agenda, but they've got control of the media and they've got control of the courts, and that's what gives them control of the country.
That's what makes it so depressing.
Yes.
And that's what makes it, and that's what makes it seem like it's just insurmountable. We can't. I don't know how we're going to get out of this.
I think we're headed for a collapse, just like the former Soviet Union. And, you know, we need to be prepared to deal with that when it happens, so that we don't have a bunch of carpetbaggers coming on in and try and start the same old scams all over again like a private central bank.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I urge all the listeners too, and tell their family and friends, buy precious metals, buy silver. Topple this scam of the system that we have.
Yes.
The central banking, the banking industry in general, the Wall Street banks. We need to put an end to this. I'm just fed up. I think I have to hang up. My blood pressure is going to go through the roof if it hasn't already. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Brendan in San Francisco. Hello, Brendan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What a great call that was, Mike. God, great listeners, great callers. Yeah, I've been off the grid for a while. I actually moved up to the mountains. San Francisco is just completely lost.
Yes.
I grew up in that town. I love it to death, and it's probably where the rest of the country's heading. I try to only call in when I have something to contribute, and I've been listening for so long now. I've probably said this before, but I think we need to embrace a barter system to circumvent this ridiculous government overreach. I know that I have skill sets that are marketable. I've been doing things of that nature for quite a while, but I think buying chickens and, you know, ducks or whatever, eggs, people need to become more self-sufficient. I don't think this train is going to be able to stop. I think we're out of control and we're just heading down the track.
I agree. Yes.
As far as the half the country, I mean, we know, I think it was 80 million people, I'm sure, voted for Trump. I'm surrounded by people that are completely indoctrinated or brainwashed. I can't figure out what it is, but every system is built to echo chamber the rest. So, for example, my sister will watch the news and it's all fake, and I'm trying to explain to her, and she can't. She has cognitive dissonance. She can connect certain dots, but there's walls that are in place that she can't break through. And then she'll turn on the Colbert Report or whatever that show is he has now, and he reinforces what the news has told her all day. And she watches the same news 3 times a day. And I say, hey, for every 1 hour you watch this news, why don't you watch RT? Even though I may not agree 100% with RT, at least it's giving you a worldview. And there's so much to talk about, but I really just wanted to tell people we have to start considering alternate systems. I don't feel comfortable with Bitcoin. I've been buying precious metals.
Yes.
But even still, I probably can't travel with a pocket full of precious metals. How far am I going to get?
True.
So I feel almost like I'm trapped now that I bought precious metals. If we're going to have passports to get around, I think I'm just going to have to hunker down in the mountains like I was already doing. I mean, I even went as far as to buy a wood saw mill so I could mill lumber up in the mountains, because we know lumber will have a marketable market no matter what. People need to build shelters and structures. And I just want to encourage the listeners not only to call in the show, but talk to your friends. I didn't want to share this, but I've been fired from 2 government jobs. I'm a licensed elevator mechanic.
Okay.
I, during the course of my job, have tried to share information with people and have been, punitive actions were taken, and I've lost jobs trying to wake people up. That's how much impact it's had on my life.
Yes.
How important this is. I love America. I don't want to lose it.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that's sort of what's motivated me for the last quarter of a century.
Yeah, I mean, our stories are parallel. I went to film school. I had a whole plan for my life.
Yeah.
I'm an artist, and all of that's gone now. I wanted to have a family. I don't see that happening in the United States. I think everyone's going to pile into Florida, and it's going to sink because where else in the country can we go? I've worked in New York. I've worked in California. This country is it's so divided now. You've got Asians being attacked, and instead of saying stop black mob violence, they say stop Asian violence. They take control of the narrative and they flip the verbiage.
Yes.
It's not stop Asian violence. It's stop black mob violence. That's one example.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Brendan.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
We should have a mock trial for crimes against humanity with Bill Gates as the defendant, and also we should have the 2020 election mock trial and get to the bottom of it, and have all the major alternative media, even that idiot Alex Jones, who's a disinformation hoaxer. Even he could draw enough people where we could have a mock trial and go against Bill Gates. In fact, people need to watch Who is Bill Gates by Corbett Report. And on that, I'll let you go, Mike, unless you have another caller.
Okay. All right. Thanks an awful lot. Yes, we do have another caller here. Meanwhile, we've got lines open right now. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're going to go to David in Iowa. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Was it Joe that was talking about Dr. Mike Yeadon? I think it was, wasn't it? You can get that article. Here's a short paragraph from this. Get a load of this. Please warn every person not to go near top-up vaccines. There is absolutely no need to them. If someone wished to harm or kill a significant proportion of the world's population over the next few years, the systems being put in place right now will enable it. It's my considered view that it is entirely possible that this will be used for massive-scale depopulation. This article can be found at John Moore's website, thelibertyman.com. scroll down when the screen comes up through the news, and you'll come to a section that has 3 columns. It's on the third column over to the right.
Okay.
And the former Pfizer VP on there. It's just amazing.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the information.
I got one other thing.
Oh, yeah, please do. Go ahead.
I cannot believe that I never found this book. I'm kicking myself. 1997, The Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso.
Mm-hmm.
On the back cover, real short couple of sentences. As chief of the Army's Foreign and Technology Division in 1961, Philip J. Corso stewarded the Roswell, New Mexico alien artifacts in a reverse engineering project that led to today's integrated circuit chips, fiber optics, lasers, capacity fibers, and ceded the Roswell alien technology to giants of American industry.
Well, that's one theory. It's not one that I agree with. Anyway, David, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to switch to Scott, Nevada. Hello, Scott. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hello, Michael. Just listening to your show, I heard that comment about a divided America, and on a lighter note. So I was just talking to a lady, never met her before. It was a commercial transaction, and she mentions Elon Musk.
Yes.
I said, oh, yeah. So if you hear that stuff about institutional racism, well, how about Elon Musk? He's African-American. That's a joke.
Wait, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Talk to you later.
All right. We're going to switch to, well, first of all, lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Hey, I'm just responding to that caller who brought up Bill Gates.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking up Starlink there on Wikipedia.
Yes.
Did you know that Starlink was developed at Redmond, Washington?
Yeah.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, my volume went down. I'm sorry. Yeah, Redmond, Washington. That's home base for Microsoft.
Yes, well, it's home base for a lot of companies. But yes, Microsoft is headquartered there.
Right. So you had Starlink there developed in the same place where Bill Gates' Microsoft is also headquartered. I just found that interesting, you know. And both these guys, where did they get their seed money for these billions of dollars for their projects? Are they just that brilliant, or is this more like a DARPA deal?
Well, we don't really know. I mean, you know, Bill Gates had a lot of investors early on, and they've all become fabulously wealthy as Microsoft has grown. As far as Elon Musk, he's got a lot of investors, started with Tesla. He caught the public imagination with SpaceX, and he's had a lot of people put money into that as well. And now that he's starting to deliver products and services, you know, he's going to make his investors wealthy.
Yeah, he started off with Tesla. And we had this whole drive towards electric vehicles. I think it's all tied into politics as well. I mean, you don't get that you don't get that kind of backing without having something in the background. You know, I read that the back doors in Microsoft Windows, starting in Windows 98, that was mandated.
Yes. For
Windows to get government contracts, they had to put those back doors in.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, there's something fishy about all this. That's all. It's just food for thought.
Well, you know, the back doors only work if you use Microsoft's embedded encryption infrastructure, because there's a second key for the NSA in there. But if you write your own encryption system, it doesn't matter what backdoor the government has. They're not going to be able to read your traffic, especially if you develop it on an air-gapped computer.
Well, yeah, no, well, they won't be able to read your traffic, but they can always penetrate your system and
not if it's air-gapped.
There's a researcher in India that found out that that's possible, even with an air-gapped machine.
Okay, well, they're getting sneakier all the time. What can I tell you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I had, Mike.
All right, thank you. We're coming up on another commercial break. The phone lines are all open now. Area code 512-248-8252. Getting on back to some news. Story coming out of informationliberation.com. Apparently 60 Minutes has been caught, not surprisingly, deceptively editing a confrontation between CBS News correspondent Cheryl Afonso and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in a piece that aired just last night. And we've seen them do that before. I mean, 60 Minutes edited their segment on the Jennifer Flowers scandal deliberately to help Bill Clinton get the nomination. Okay. Down in Texas, apparently they're telling American Airlines where they can go because American Airlines is trying to put pressure on them regarding immigration. And Mike Huckabee is out there asking, why isn't anyone overturning Biden's executive orders? And that's a really good question, because under the way the system works, Biden can sign an executive order. Congress has 30 days to review it and vote it down. After that, it goes into the Federal Registry, and it's a law for the executive branch. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials. Be back with the last segment of our program. Join us on the air, area code 512-248-8252. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program on this Monday. And for those of you who have been visiting the whatreallyhappened.com website, you have probably noticed that it's running a lot faster. That we're no longer getting those server error, gateway problems. I finally got together enough money to hire a freelance consultant who's been fixing a lot of things at the site, including the internal search engine that searches the database. So if you haven't been to whatreallyhappened.com in a while, it might be time for you to go back and pay a visit and see how it works. Meanwhile, we're going to go back to the phones to Graybeard in Washington State. Hello, Gray. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? Long-time listener, occasional caller.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little thing on my mind. It's bone to pick with the listeners.
Okay.
I like to catch you live when I can, but when I can't, I'm watching your Ron Gibson rebroadcast or his archive channel there.
Yes.
And I noticed that there's 600 plus, at 8 o'clock in the evening on the day of the show, you've got over 600 views on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe 45 likes. What's up with that, people? We can do better than that. We put the likes on his videos get shared a little bit broader from the algorithm.
Well, we've caught YouTube running down both the view count and the likes on a lot of our videos, not just the radio show, but Claire's music videos as well. They don't want us to be popular.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's a given for their standpoint anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, that's all I got. I won't do any tomfoolery, as it were.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And getting on back to the issue of gun rights here, there's an interesting little story from Patriot Rising, and it's talking about how gun sales are plateauing right now, but they think it's basically due to demand being met, because firearms are durable goods which, with a little care, remain effective and operational for hundreds of years. And that's certainly true. Although when I was in Hawaii, I made the mistake of ignoring the salt, humid climate, which kind of ate up my black powder guns rather nastily. So anyway, what can I tell you on that one? Apparently, cyber criminals have hacked GitHub servers for crypto mining. So they're out there. And again, cybercrime is such a problem, and you have to wonder why our government just really doesn't seem to care. I mean, cybercrime is a clear and present danger to the economy of the United States. It's certainly more of a present danger than anything Russia's going to do. Oh, there's the music. Okay, well, it's time for us to get on out of here. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word, whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.